Hello and welcome to another episode of Two Guys and a Chainsaw. I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
All right, well, here we are in 2023, and Craig and I were talking about what movie would we do next. I had a few things on the list that I wanted to see, and one of them is called Death Spa from 1988. I don't really remember how I found this movie. I think I was looking at theme movies for theme months, and I noticed that at least one movie took place in like a spa, like a workout place. There's a movie called Killer Workout. There's this one, Death Spa. We did The Toxic Avenger, a lot of which took place in a workout facility.
Yeah.
I think there was one other one. There's like one called Murder Rock, which is from Lucio Fulci, which is kind of a musical.
Random.
Yeah, very random. And I found this one, and I acquired it a while ago, and it had been on my list, and I keep forgetting about it. And I just felt like I was in the mood for a cheesy 80s slasher movie. Craig was willing, and I don't regret it one bit. Not one bit. This, oh my God. This may be one of my all-time new favorite movies. It was almost everything I had hoped it would be, and so much more. It didn't disappoint to the very last frame. And I'm so excited to talk about this with you. And you texted me, and I don't know if you had finished watching the movie or you were in the middle of it, but you texted me saying, I've never been so excited to record in a long time.
I wanted to do something fun too, because I feel like the last couple of movies we've done, we just haven't really liked all that much. So I wanted to do something fun. So like I was Googling So Bad It's Good movies and stuff. And I shot you a couple of suggestions, and you sent this one back and another one. And I hadn't heard of either of them. So we picked this one for convenience because it was readily available. You can stream it on several platforms for free and do it because this movie is amazing. It is
do it now.
Bananas. Seriously, do it right now. Don't watch and don't read anything about it. Now, I only read the synopsis, I think, on IMDb, which is really vague. After the movie, I looked it up on Wikipedia, and the synopsis gives more away. And part of the reason that I liked this movie is because it is just wackadoodle. Like
it is so crazy.
The first 45 minutes or so, I'm like, what? This is kind of stupid. And I was like, I don't really get it. I don't really get what's going on. And then there came a part where I was like, oh, I get it. I see what the twist is. I know what's going on here. And then for the last 30 or 45 minutes, the whole time I was like, what?
It definitely takes some turns.
And when it became apparent what was actually happening, oh my God, it was so good. And the last 30-40 minutes of this movie are crazy, and I loved every minute of it. I was cheering and hysterically laughing out loud. So funny. Oh man.
This movie has so much heart to it. I just had to look up and find out as much as I could about the people who made it, because I can't believe I've never heard of this before.
I know.
This is not talked about extensively in the horror community. This movie, as far as I know, maybe I'm just in the wrong circles. It needs to be a cult classic if it's not already.
It really should be. I mean, it's crazy. I don't know. It doesn't remind me of anything because I've never seen a movie just like it. But it's crazy in the way that Society was crazy, or
yes,
David Yezna. It feels like a David Yezna kind of movie.
Night of the Creeps kind of thing, maybe.
Yeah, Silent Night, Deadly Night 4, or whichever one of those he did. It's crazy. And really, when it boils right down to it, the concept is very simple, but they tease it out for a really long time. Mm-hmm. And then they take a very simple concept and just go nuts. Like, what can we do?
Yes.
So much fun.
Well, it has an interesting backstory. There's this guy named Walter Shenson who was most famous for producing the early Beatles films, like A Hard Day's Night.
Yeah.
He's a very well-respected British producer. Made tons of money off of that. His estate still has the rights to those. That was before the Beatles were famous in the U.S. So that was a good call. Anyway, he had became good friends with this producer called Jamie Beardsley, who had not done a lot did a movie called The Munchies.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not sure if Jamie Beardsley is a male or female. I'm just going to say
they
him, just to be clear. Yeah, Jamie really wanted to do a horror movie and had been talking with Walter Shenson about it. And there's this Austrian guy who came into the picture, who is a theater producer / director there in the States, who had just somehow really bonded with Shenson. And his name was Michael Fisher, and he ended up directing this movie. So Shenson recommended Fisher. Beardsley put together, they kind of chatted amongst themselves and decided, well, what kind of horror movie are we going to make? And they decided to latch on to the Health Craze that was so popular and set it in a health spa. They enlisted a writer, James Bartroff, who had never written any screenplays before, to write it as like a ghost story. So there's like a ghost in this health spa. It got finished in 1983, but quite frankly, wasn't very good. So they set it aside while they worked on a movie called Echo Park. And then they brought in another writer named Mitch Paradise, which is a fantastic name for a writer. Mitch Paradise came in. He said he completely rewrote it. He said it's honestly, it's just an act of charity that James Bartroff's name is still on it, because they co-credited it to James Bartroff. Uh-huh. And apparently, uncredited, they brought in a famous film critic from the Hollywood Reporter named Kirk Honeycutt to do a final polish on it. So they had this script that is so wackadoodle and so fun, and I think that is like at the heart of this. The other thing about the movie that I think makes it work really well is done very earnestly. Apparently, they all just had a ball working on this. Michael Fisher loves this movie from start to finish. Is so proud of it. The producer's proud of it. Everybody's really proud of what they came up with, because they said that they accomplished exactly what they set out to do.
That's funny.
Yeah, and then you look at the people in this movie, and go to the IMDb page and just click one at a time through all the characters, of which, by the way, there are like 1,000.
Yeah, a bunch.
But almost all of them have gone on, either just before this movie or after this movie, have gone on to be working actors in television, in the movies, video game voicing, and all that stuff. Almost everybody involved here is maybe not, the name at the top of your list. There are no like Will Smiths or anything in here, but there are people who are continuous working actors. And so it's going to be so much fun to talk about this. Like Ken Forsey from Dawn of the Dead and several of Rob Zombie's flicks plays a guy.
Is he the big black guy, right?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, Marvin in there.
I recognized him. Mm-hmm.
And then, we not long ago did Uninvited, right? Remember Uninvited? Also one of our absolute favorite hilarious movies. And Catherine, the woman ghost in this movie, I guess you could say. Sherry Shattuck, who was in Uninvited. And she ever since has been all over television. But in this movie, apparently her voice was dubbed by another actress. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, you could kind of tell.
Mm-hmm.
Her name sounded familiar, but I couldn't place her. It's funny that you said no Will Smiths, because Karen Parsons, this was her first movie, and she played his cousin on Fresh Prince. She was his like rich, snooty cousin, Hillary,
right?
Yeah. And this was her first thing. I didn't recognize her. It wasn't until after I read that she was in it, and I looked her up, and she was that girl. She was a funny part.
Apparently some NBC executive saw this movie on late night cable and called her up based on her performance in here, which isn't a big role.
No, but she has a small role.
Yeah.
It's a funny role. It's a funny movie.
Oh, it's so funny.
I couldn't tell. I'm glad to hear you say that they got exactly what they were going for, because I kind of couldn't tell, because it's played straight. Like, everybody plays it super straight, and it really seems like they are giving their all. But at the same time, it's so campy. It's one of the campiest things I've ever seen. And it's hilarious with just gags. Like, gags that would fall flat in other places. Like, this is what Frankenstein General Hospital dreamed of being, you know, like silly, goofy, lots of boobs and dance aerobics, and this movie has everything.
It does, and it's such a time capsule of like our favorite era. There are beautiful people in here. There's tons of nudity in this. There is loads of gore. Apparently, when they were shooting this, they just had buckets. They had like a special effects team, a VFX team, and like a blood team. All they did was manage the blood and mop up the blood. And they were talking about how they would come to a shoot and just be drenched with the blood. Like the crew had to wear ponchos and booties and stuff on their feet. But because they were shooting this in a spa, it was basically an old spa that had long closed. So they were able to just kind of do whatever. They could just kind of mop things off the floor pretty quickly. But they said that the shoot was just like, I think it was one of the actors who walked into the movie. He has a very small role too, which I was kind of surprised by. David Shaughnessy. Yeah. He played Freddy, the curly-haired guy. Oh, yeah. Who seems early on like he's going to be a bit of comic relief, but then he's barely in it. But this guy apparently walked into the set on the first day and was like, oh, so this is the kind of movie we're making. He has an extensive resume after this. He actually played Demise and a few other characters in Labyrinth before he came into this movie. Oh. And then he just became a voice actor for the last 20 years. He has been in all the most famous video games. If you name a video game, he's had a voice in it. It's kind of insane. Grand Theft Auto, Mass Effect, Destiny, all these games, Tomb Raider, you name it, he played something in it. So that, it's just kind of funny how so many people from this movie went on to have great careers, especially after this movie.
I know. I still, my mind is blown that I've never even heard of this movie. I feel like it's not super well known because that I watch tons of, documentaries about horror movie, and the 100 greatest horror movies you've never seen. I've never heard of this. Yes. And it's crazy, and I can't wait to tell everybody I know about it.
I know, right? It's on my list. It's on my list for sure.
It's low budget.
Yeah.
It was only like a $750,000 budget, and that's fine. You can kind of tell, but at the same time, it's skillfully done. There's some really good camera work in it.
There's awesome camera work in here.
Yeah, and the effects are all practical, and on the one hand, they look kind of awful, and on the other hand, in the most excellent way.
Yes.
It seems like an effect that you and I and Heather would set up and then execute it, and it would go right, and we would cheer and jump up and it's just like these fun, crazy explosions and people's heads blowing off, and and it's all so bizarre, because of the premise, because even though this is only teased for the first half of the movie, it ends up that it's just a haunted house movie, except it's not a haunted house, it's a haunted health spa. Mm-hmm. But because it's a haunting, they can do whatever they want. There are no rules, supernatural things can just happen. Yeah. So, somebody's head can just blow up for no reason, or an entire wall can shatter and explode right in front of somebody and just completely obliterate them. And that's fine. It's just the world that we're in. Oh, I love it. And when you get to that last part, which I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but it's all lit in neon. And you're right, it's in an 80s health spa, and all the women are in those,
leotards,
high-cut leotards,
Oh, man.
High cut on the sides. It looks just like the exercise videos that were advertised on TV incessantly in the 80s and that ran on TV. And you're right, it's a total time capsule of that time. And we remember, this was a big deal, this health craze.
Yeah.
Especially, I think it mostly came out of Los Angeles, but it was all over the country. Mm-hmm. Middle-aged housewives were doing jazzercise in their living rooms everywhere.
Jane Fonda workout. I did it with my mom.
Oh, gosh, yeah. It's just so nostalgic. I don't know where to begin to... It's great.
And as a kid, I don't know, viewing this from afar, never ever having been to a health spa. Actually, even as an adult, I've rarely been to a health spa. But as a kid, they were seen as the coolest thing. It seemed to be just endless rooms of machines and exercise and hot tubs and saunas and pools and things like that you would just go like a little mini resort in the middle of the city and just socialize and hang out, and bars where they would juice things up for you, and it just seemed really, really cool. And this movie makes this health club seem really cool. It looks like it's packed to the gills every day. with
It
people
looks
doing.
like what we thought they were like. I don't know what they were really like. I never really went to one either, but it looks like they were portrayed in all of these movies. And of course, it's a movie, so everybody in there looks like they don't really need to be at a health spa. Like they're Then again, I guess the people who frequent gyms are probably the people who look like that. But
That's true.
yeah,
point.
I mean, and you're right. It's packed all the time. The gimmick behind this particular health spa, which I totally believe from the 80s, is that it's entirely automated. Like all of the equipment is automated and computerized. So like you have to have like a key card that you have to scan the machines, and I guess it probably has your workout information or whatever, and so it's all tailored to you.
Yeah, it sets the weights and everything for you, which are like hidden behind the wall even, right? The resistance, the weights, everything like that.
Right.
Like all these, at first, the opening shot, when it first kind of pans through the building, which is an awesome shot, by the way, I looked at it, I was kind of skeptical. I was like, why? This looks weird. Like there are fewer machines than I would expect in a health club. And then the bits are kind of jutting out from the wall. I'm like, where would you set the weights? What would you do? I was really skeptical at first when I saw it. And I thought, oh man, this is going to be super lame. Like these people don't even know how to put a set together. But then, once it was explained, it was actually really cool. And I would say forward thinking for the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually pretty clever.
For the time, it probably felt a little bit sci-fi. Looking at it from 2022, I'm sure there are gyms like this.
Exactly.
But you're right. Maybe a little bit ahead of their time in their thinking, which is creative and original. I had never seen anything like it before. It was a fun setup.
Yeah, it really was. And that opening shot, oh my gosh, I was so impressed. Oh, the music's good too, by the way. It opens up with this kind of creepy music, and it's this huge crane shot that apparently they had to get a really tall cherry picker used for construction to get this shot, to get up high enough, and a Steadicam operator up on there. And it's this huge shot that just pans kind of across LA as it slowly comes down onto this spa, which is called the Star
Body Health Spa.
And this lit up sign, but it's nighttime, so everybody's leaving.
And it's a dark and stormy night.
There's flashes of lightning every now and then. And as it comes down to the spa, the last few people are leaving and they get in their car and they drive off, but the camera is still moving. And eventually, like a lightning bolt hits the sign, which it sparks, and it messes up the neon on the sign so that Star Body Health Spa says Death Spa.
It's great.
Which was so clever and perfectly timed.
Fantastic.
It was awesome. I was like, okay, this is going to be cool. Then it slowly goes into the spa. We're getting the credits and the music, and it's just taking us through just a little bit of the layout of the front here. And then we see that there's actually a girl inside, like a last person to leave, kind of through one of the windows.
Yeah. And she's dancing. There's quite a bit of dancing in this movie.
There is a lot of dancing. It's not bad. I mean, she's dancing, exercising, whatever, by herself in there in the dimness as the lights are all coming off.
And then she takes a sauna naked.
Yeah.
And it's so gratuitous.
Oh, God,
but that's
yeah.
Everything about this, there is so much gratuitous nudity.
It's fantastic.
In this movie. It's great. It's so 80s. I absolutely, of course, this woman, I didn't write down any of their names because I didn't recognize
This was
many
Laura,
of them.
right?
This was Laura, and it turns out that she is the girlfriend of the manager,
Yes.
or the owner. She's the last one there. She's got her own key. She can let herself out or whatever. But she takes, she goes into the sauna and is completely nude, lays out completely flat in the sauna, and the camera just pans over her entire naked body.
While she's also running her own hands across her body.
I literally thought she was going to start masturbating.
I thought so too. It was almost like that hand was like looking at us being like, oh, you see where I'm going? Oh, wait, no, psych.
And her body was like impossibly dewy. I'm like,
oh,
what?
Yeah.
Like somebody is standing right off camera, like spritzing this woman. And don't get me wrong, she's gorgeous. She has a beautiful body. It's excellent 80s gratuitous nudity. I was completely 100% down for it.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, this sets the tone for the whole movie. I mean, this is like the first 5 minutes. And Laura, by the way, is played by Brenda Vacchi, who is in Hot Shots Part 2, Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight, Under Siege 2, was all over television, has got a ton of roles, is still working today.
Yeah.
She is visited before she pops in there by Marvin, who is Ken Foree, who I mentioned earlier. And I think it's kind of a cool scare, right? Because we got this POV that just looks like a camera POV. And then somehow in the middle of it, it becomes like a person's POV. And then we see the shadow come up from behind her, but, it's just this guy who's helping her close for the night. He works there.
Yeah, he works there.
It's like a personal trainer or maybe like an assistant director
I don't
or something.
know.
It's hard to say.
That's the thing. We just watched some movie where there were so many characters, and we're like, there are so many characters, and I don't care about any of them. That's kind of the case here, too. Like, there are so many characters. It kind of took me a long time to keep track of who everybody was, that I didn't really care. Like, in this case, I didn't so much care. Like, okay, there's like 3 blonde, like 3 tall, skinny blondes with big boobs. Which one is which? I don't really care. Like, that's this movie doesn't require a lot of
thought,
character depth. Yeah,
it doesn't, and it doesn't matter.
It doesn't, and I feel like that almost sounds hypocritical because I was just so critical of another movie for doing the same thing, but it's a completely different tone.
Yeah.
This is a movie about watching people die in interesting and creative ways. And the whole first part, like, I really didn't know what was going on. Like, she's there in the sauna, and then all of a sudden, and we've seen this before, there's too much steam, and it's getting too hot or something.
I think it was like smoke. It turned out to be a vapor, right? It turned out to be
it did.
Something else. But yeah, you're not quite sure. I wasn't sure if it was like poison gas or if she was too hot or whatever. She just jumps up and screams and smashes a window, but, collapses to the floor anyway.
And then it cuts to what becomes our main character, I guess, Michael, who is the club owner, and he's sleeping on a couch, but he's dreaming of someone on fire, and I'm like, I had to rewind. I had to click that little go back 30 seconds button on this movie so many times because if I looked away for a second and I would look back and something totally bonkers would be going on and I would have no idea what was going on, and then I would rewind it and it's like, oh, there is no context. It's just a random flash of somebody completely aflame, and then he wakes up, I guess.
I actually thought this was smart because, we see these little flashbacks where clearly his brain is bothered by something in his past or whatever, or he's having these recurring dreams. And we get a little bit more information with every single one of them until finally we see what happened.
Right.
In a movie like this, I thought that was rather smart, actually. And he's played by William Buemiller, who was all over TV in the 80s and 90s. He did a stint on Days of Our Lives. I didn't know if you knew that.
I know, I saw that, but he played 4 different characters, so I have a feeling he was just an extra.
Oh, okay. He wakes up, and it took me a while to figure out the relationships here, too.
I know, because ultimately it doesn't really matter. So he owns the place. There's a brunette lady called Priscilla who's the manager. He has a lawyer named Tom who hangs around there sometimes. And then there are 2 detectives. Lieutenant Fletcher is an older kind of, I don't know, pudgier
guy,
balding white guy. And then there's Sergeant Stone, who's the tough as nails black lady. Totally playing, not necessarily to racial stereotypes, but these are the detectives that you see in every movie from the 80s.
Exactly.
And so they're investigating because Laura, it turns out that the reason that she was freaking out was because it was condensed chlorine gas. And it burned her skin. Her skin is mostly okay, but her eyes are burned. She's going to be fine, but she has to walk around blindfolded for the rest of the movie.
For the rest of the movie, which is interesting. It leads to some really interesting situations.
Yeah, and she has to walk around the house that she either lives in. It's her boyfriend's house. I don't know if she lives there or not, but she's there for most of the movie. It's a multi-level house where none of the levels have railings. So
yes, it's the worst house for a blinded person to be poking around in. They would why she didn't fall to her own death.
She would be dead.
Just walking around the house to the kitchen to get a snack. I think it was kind of weird. It was an awesome looking house, though. Sergeant Stone was Rosalind Cash. She was Lisa in Omega Man, the original Charlton Heston one, which was one of my favorite movies growing up. And do you remember Tales from the Hood? The last segment, I think, where the guy goes down and there's some doctor is talking to him about, that's her.
Yeah.
And
I remember talking about her at the time. She had done a lot of TV in the 80s, too, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the same deal with Lieutenant Fletcher, this Francis X. McCarthy guy, over 140 credits, in and out of every television show you could think of in the 80s, all the way up to today. He's still on TV.
Yeah, almost all of these people either had been working and are still working or are still working, sadly, except for the other kind of main character, even though he really probably only has 5 minutes of screen time total. But David is the computer programmer of the, like he controls all this stuff in the gym.
Yeah, he designed it.
He's played by a guy named Merritt Butrick, who passed away right after this came out, and he was young.
29.
I didn't read what happened to him. Did you?
Yeah, it's toxoplasmosis, which is kind of like a parasite that you get from food poisoning generally.
Oh, wow.
Which normally is no big deal. You don't even notice it, but because he had AIDS, it specifically targets your immune system, and so
gotcha.
That's pretty tragic. He was in Star Trek 2 and 3. He was the son of Captain Kirk, I believe, in those movies, and seemed to have a rising career when he died. He's also in Fright Night 2, I guess, but
yeah,
I haven't seen that.
I don't know if I have either. He didn't look familiar to me, but he was a young, handsome guy. I mean, it's too bad.
Yeah.
He plays a weirdo in this movie. It's also super convoluted because what's his name? Michael is with Laura, but he's also a recent widower. His wife, Catherine, is dead. We don't know what happened to her yet, but Catherine was David's twin sister.
Yes.
And because David and Michael kind of have this weird conversation because Michael thinks that maybe the computer had something to do with it, or maybe David had something to do with it.
You're here because you know the system and because you're Catherine's brother.
Both circumstances must be terribly trying for you.
If I thought for one moment that you put chlorine in the steam...
You'd resort to the only weapon in your pathetic arsenal? Jock violence.
I think there's a glitch in your precious system.
That's impossible.
Why are you so full of hate?
You found some comfort for your sorrow, I notice. But then Laura was always there for you, wasn't she? She and others. Huh? I loved Catherine. She never wanted that child.
How do you get things so twisted up?
We shared thoughts you'd never understand.
Some of the dialogue in this is golden. Absolutely golden, because it is so terrible. And it's just it's so badly written and then delivered with absolute sincerity.
It's great.
It's fantastic. So there's a dead wife, but the dead wife has a twin sister, and the twins are have telekinesis. And, it's
twin brother.
So good.
Yeah, it's nuts. So yeah, you're kind of confused, but it all kind of comes together. And I mean, basically what it is, and we learn this over time based on various people's comments and the investigation that kind of ensues, and the cops asking the questions, so the FBI investigators asking the questions, is that David's wife was pregnant with apparently a child she didn't want. And in the childbirth, there was some complication that led to her breaking her lower back. And maybe it was an epidural that went wrong or something like that. Anyway, she ended up paralyzed.
And lost the baby.
Descended into depression, and then immolated herself. Took her wheelchair out to the field behind their house, dumped gasoline all over herself, and set herself on fire.
Which he keeps dreaming about.
Yeah.
And weird stuff keeps happening. I mean, that's the thing. Weird stuff keeps happening at the spa. But at one point, Michael finds, a bird fetus or something. There was so much that I didn't understand.
Bird nest with a fetus in it in his office, which he gets really pissed about, immediately runs to David, believes that David put it there.
Oh, God.
And I was like, is that related to the baby he was talking about? I wasn't quite sure. What?
I guess. I think so. And then we're a diving board breaks. Somebody messed with the bolts and a girl almost got hurt.
A girl fell in the water. Oh, my God. I couldn't.
Yeah, she was on a high dive. She bounced 10 times. But then it broke and she fell in the water, and you would think that she had, I don't know.
Hit concrete or something. Why was everybody so concerned about her well-being? She literally just fell into the water.
And then there's a gratuitous shower scene where every woman in the place decides to take a shower at the same time. And I read that, they called in extras from a porn casting company for this. It kind of looks like it. Lots of big boobs. Mm-hmm. But during that shower, the jets start shooting really hard, and then tiles start shooting off the wall and cutting the girls up. But after that's over, Michael's like comforting the girls who were in there, and two of them were like,
You two all right?
Yeah, but to tell you the truth, Michael, this place could use better maintenance.
Yeah, who needs weight reduction through terror?
I'm sorry about the showers. I want to extend your memberships for 3 months, no charge. Drop by my office and I'll take care of it personally.
Do you think you can handle both of us after jazz class tomorrow?
Well, I can sure have fun trying.
It's like they just shake this off. And
yeah, one of these is Hillary from the from Fresh Prince. And then so it's these two cute girls talking to Michael after they've just been assaulted by a ghost in the shower. And this is all delivered as though people really talk like this.
Yeah. Everybody in this club is very handsy and flirty with each other. Everybody in this spa of death, especially these two girls. It's like they're fighting to like get, even though everybody knows everybody, they're still trying to make it with Michael or something through this whole thing, it seems like.
Both of them at the same time. He's not that good looking. I guess maybe he's rich. He does have a nice house. Well, then some guy named Robert gets crushed in the weight machine.
Oh my gosh.
I loved that scene.
The best thing about this movie is you know something bad is about to happen because the music changes to this very specific music that is absolutely sinister. He swipes his card on this weight machine, which is one of these like where you pull your arms together in the front. He sits down and he puts his, I guess, I just had so many questions. He's doing this machine and the computer goes, oh, the resistance is now 100 pounds. Now it's 130. Now it's 140. He's like, what? And he keeps doing his crunches. And finally, he can't do it anymore. He's like, somebody help me. Somebody help me. Like, I guess the machine is pulling his arms back.
It makes absolutely no sense.
They're still parallel to him. And
right. There's nowhere for them to go because it's right up against the wall.
Yeah.
So it's not like they can keep going back. They're just, but...
Can he just take his hands out? Just remove your arms from the machine and you're done.
But no, instead his like rib cage like bursts open. But that was, and it looks like a somewhat cheap practical effect, but I loved it. I loved the absurdity of it. Like it was just absolutely absurd.
It was.
And I thought it was great. Like I was laughing out loud because I thought it was so funny.
Michael runs into David's room immediately after that and he's blaming him. He thinks the computer had something to do with it. David's like, the computer had nothing to do with the accident. You can't blame the computer for tiles flying off the walls. The computer doesn't control tiles, for Christ's sake. And I thought about that for a minute. I was like, what does control the tiles? Now I want to know.
And so they think a possible solution would be to change all of the machines to manual. But Tom, the lawyer / business partner, I don't really know. He says he doesn't want to do that because that would take away the only unique thing about the spa. He's shady.
Yeah, it's nice that Mike, actually wants to correct this by disconnecting the computer, but it's against him. And I love what Tom says. Mike, the partners and I agree that nothing can ruin the success of the Mardi Gras party on Friday night. And I was like, oh, there's going to be a Mardi Gras party. This movie is just full of happy surprises.
Oh, it's glorious. I know. That's why the last half hour is so good.
Oh, God.
But then, so Mark brings Laura home. She's fine, except for she has to wear these big bandages over her eyes. So he gives her a gift wrap blazer with enormous shoulder pads in it.
That she can't see.
And then seductively feeds her asparagus in front of the fire.
Oh, God, that's so great. It looks so awkward, but that close-up of that semi-limp asparagus.
It looks like a parody of something. Yes, because it's a limp piece of asparagus. And he just puts the tip right on her lip and she like flicks her tongue on it. And then takes a bite. She's like, sure beats hospital food. Oh, God, it's so stupid and so hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So then there's another girl, Marcy, alone in the locker room. I don't know who she is.
She just kind of came out of nowhere.
But the lockers start slamming and she doesn't run or...
She doesn't do anything.
She just kind of looks around and kind of just gingerly backs up and doesn't realize that one of the lockers directly behind her is open and has an enormous spear coming out of it.
I don't know. It just just for some reason, the very locker she's standing in front of has this spear that shoots right through her neck. So then, like, we don't see her again, but they kind of mention that she's missing.
Yeah, we do actually. We see her dead body in the locker because it's apparently Laura's locker. Because Michael brings Laura back to the spa to like collect her things. Why?
Yeah.
What do you need?
Which is weird because, okay, so they talking about how they haven't seen her for 2 days. Laura opens up the locker to get her things, and that's creepy, right? Because there's the dead body right in front of them. But now her face is messed up too.
That happens more than once. I don't know what's going on there. That happens later with the pirate too. It's weird. The pirate. Yes, there's a pirate later.
Of course there is. But we do see like kind of our first indication that things are weirder than just the computer like malfunctioning, because Michael is up in the room waiting because he has to unlock the lockers. He has to like override the master security or something for her to just open her locker. And he types on his computer like his password, which is Catherine, interestingly enough. And then later on the computer shows a message that says, "Michael, I miss you." And it turns on the security camera. And he can see there's this like ghostly figure walking down the hallway towards the locker room. So he jumps up, he runs down there. And this figure is walking straight into the locker room. He comes up behind it, puts his arm around its neck, and rips the mask off of its face. And it's Priscilla, who just goes, "Ha ha, don't you like my Mardi Gras costume? I've just tried it out." What?
I don't know. It was stupid. I honestly, I mean, it was a tense moment.
It was.
It was just a dumb payoff. But again, I don't care. Like,
no.
I in a different movie, I would criticize it. In this movie, whatever. It's all par for the course. It can be as stupid as it wants to, and I don't care.
Yeah.
Then we see in a flashback, his wife burns herself. He says he feels her presence everywhere, thinks that she's causing trouble. So he goes and sees Dr. Lito More, who is a paranormal investigator who does psychometry, and he has a magic gun that can, like, sense the paranormal or something.
Oh, God. It's so great.
Mike gives him like a brooch of Catherine's or something, and he knows her entire story. He's like, I see a bird's nest because that's what she thought of your family. You were, family making your nest, and it's so weird. And then it cuts to a scene where you don't see people, you just hear people talking, and it sounds like two people talking.
Yeah.
And it's like in a messy house, and there's like sex noises.
I can't do this anymore. Catherine, we're hurting people.
Yes, you can. That's better. They're so weak. And together we are so strong.
And I have in my notes, Catherine and David like,
yeah, right?
Because there were weird sex noises. I still don't understand. What was happening.
I still don't understand why there were sex noises in that room.
Oh, it's weird.
Yeah.
What? I don't know. I feel like the end is the good part. I'm trying to think. One of those girls who wanted to have a three-way with Michael gets a note after her next workout that says, "Meet me in the basement, Michael." And so she goes down there and gets attacked by acid sprinklers.
I guess, yeah, the sprinkler system is now have acid in it or something.
I just feel the movie it seems, red herrings isn't the right term, but I feel like there's a lot of misleading going on. Like, and they're trying to make you think it could be a number of things. Like, David very ominously visits Laura and kind of menaces her, like with a screwdriver that she can't even see because she's still blind.
Yeah.
And I guess he was there to do something to Michael's computer, but we never find out what, and we never really know what was going on. I don't know. There's just a lot of diversion stuff going on, which is great because then at the end, I had no idea what was happening.
Then the lawyer with Priscilla goes down and disconnects the computer from the air conditioning.
I know, and I was like, what are they doing?
I still don't understand why they did that.
I do. They explain it later.
Oh, they were trying to sabotage the party, right?
Yes, and when he confronts them with that, they're just like, yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. This is our plan all along.
And I think that they confess to being behind the initial attack.
Yeah.
The chlorine stuff. So like that was them, presumably. The only thing is Priscilla says, well, she should have been fine because that door doesn't lock. So they weren't trying to hurt her. I think they were just trying to maybe scare her, have something go wrong. But still, something went not according to plan. But
right.
It just so happens that they are trying to sabotage the business so that it will go under and they can sweep in and buy it out from under him.
Yep.
Which I couldn't believe. It was so hilarious to me that he just is like, you did this, didn't you? And she, yep. Pretty much. No trying to
no question.
Skirt around it, nothing.
Nope.
Oh,
well,
God.
Then the paranormal investigator's walking around with his device. He goes to the basement. He discovers that girl's body, which looked absolutely disgusting because apparently she's still alive. Still slowly melting, like her heart is still beating.
I know.
She's making noises.
Her heart
and
that we can see, like she's completely melted.
Oh, it's so...
like her bones are melted, but she's still moving and making
awesome.
Whimpering noises.
Makes no sense, but it's gross and awesome.
No, it looks like Night of the Living Dead or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's silly and awesome. Yeah, I loved it. But then it's my favorite scene when, again, we have this weird thing where it's the two voices and you hear the guy's voice say, we should stop now. I see their faces. I hear their screams. It's horrible. And then the woman says, well, I'm tired of waiting for Michael. And then it cuts up like it had shown us presumably a woman like shaving her legs or putting lotion on her shaved legs or something. But then it cuts up and it's David sitting there and he just screams, no!
Yeah.
This is the part where in my notes I'm like, oh, okay, I have this figured out. I thought that I knew what was going on. I thought that he was crazy.
Yeah, me too.
That it was like a multiple personalities kind of thing.
Like a psycho kind of thing.
Yes, exactly like a psycho thing. He had been traumatized by her death. They were so close. They had this connection that he has lost he's broken with reality and he's both of them. Nope.
No, because it doesn't explain what this figure does to the paranormal investigator. He grabs him, throws him all the way up to this high ceiling, just like with superhuman strength, and it falls down. And then the paranormal investigator pulls out a gun, but his hand just explodes. And starts spraying blood everywhere. And then this figure that looks like a woman in a dress and everything, it looks like that Catherine figure we'd seen earlier, just starts chucking him around the room, like way up the top of these stairs, and he ends up dead. I was so confused. I was like, is this paranormal? Like, what? It just, because even if it's David, like, he wouldn't have that superhuman strength to be able to do these things.
Right.
Why is the guy's hand exploding? You know?
And Michael thinks it's David. He's convinced that it's David now, and so he takes the cops to David's house. So many hilarious things. First of all, the cops pull onto the street and like park in the middle of the street on a red zone, which just cracks me up for some reason. And then they follow Michael up to David's apartment and the door's locked and nobody's answering. So he looks at them and says, I'm going to break in. So they both turn around like, we can't be party to this. We can't see this. So we'll just turn our backs while you break in.
Because this is how the FBI works.
And then when he gets the door open, he like looks back and they look back. They're like, oh, okay. And they go in and his apartment looks like it's been kind of packed up, like everything's covered in sheets and stuff, but he's obviously still living there. But they also see all these women's clothing. So they put out an APB for him. But the guy's like, he's a small guy, slight build, 135 pounds, about 5'8". Oh, and get this, he might be in drag. So they thought the same thing that I did. They thought that, and I mean, it's kind of right, but not really. It's even better than that.
Oh, it's way better.
But that's when we get to the party. Mardi Gras. It's a Mardi Gras party. So everybody is in costume, and there's tons of people there. Like, the whole place is packed, and they've got music, and people are dancing.
It's so cool.
And it's hilarious, and they've got, like, bars set up, and... It's fantastic. And that's the whole last half hour, and it's just excellent.
I love it how the investigators show up, and they spend about 30 seconds looking for who they think is Catherine, and the rest of the time, they're just hanging out at the party, helping them move beer around, drinking. But in the meantime, this Catherine figure is walking through, and we see
she's
her
just walking around.
Clearly, right? They just miss her.
She only died less than a year ago, and she was the wife of the owner, and nobody knows what she looks like.
Apparently so. Unless they think somebody's dressed up like Catherine for Mardi Gras.
That would be tacky. But anyway, Michael tells a pirate to go guard the computer room. So there's a pirate guarding the computer room, and Catherine goes in there and turns all of the computers on with magic, like with a wave of her hand. And then she seduces the pirate by like sitting on the desk and like looking at him seductively. And I think she kind of goes in for a kiss, but instead she grabs his face and like crushes his head.
Twists it or something? I don't know.
I don't know.
The aftermath we see later looks really bizarre. It's like his face has been mushed like putty in one direction. Actually looks like the pig nose people from that famous Twilight Zone episode. I thought.
Yeah, it did. You only see it for a second, but you do see it for a second, and that is what it looks like. So then Catherine puts on the pirate costume and grabs Laura and ties her up
to the tanning bed. In the tanning room.
Ties her up in a tanning bed.
Which is the only room in this entire place that doesn't have people in it. I just thought it was funny that this whole tanning facility has one tanning bed.
Well, and Laura, I think, kind of wakes up as she's getting tied up, maybe, and Catherine says to her, "What a shock, poor dear. The dead the dead past returning to haunt you." And she, like, Catherine beckons Michael through the intercom, and so he goes to the control room, and the printer is printing out like pages and pages of "I miss you." And then Catherine is there. First she's not there, then she is there, and she brings up video of Laura in the tanning bed, and she says, "One click of a button and she's fried chicken." This whole scene is so surreal. Everything's lit in red. She's in like a white gown, and she wants him to kill himself. And she says, "If you don't kill yourself, I'll kill everybody." She knocks him out, and then we cut to Tom, the lawyer.
And Priscilla.
It's not Priscilla. Priscilla's the dark-haired one. This is one of the blondes. I don't know which one this was.
Oh, okay.
It was one of the hot blondes. And she's, of course, fully naked. He's wearing a towel around his waist. But they sit down and start to make out, and then something just... What happens? Does her head explode? It seems like something shoots through the back of her head, but her whole head...
His head.
His head, right.
I think it was a piece of wood from the wall, because it's one of those saunas that's, clad in wood. Because later bits of wood are coming off the wall and kind of like and kind of all over her. But I had to rewind it twice and watch it in slow motion to see actually what happened to him, and I think that's what it was.
Yeah, it's insane. And it's just like his whole head is just goo and she's screaming, then it cuts away. And then my favorite in my notes I have, "Catherine is David? ?
Yes.
What the fuck? Like,
It's the best.
this scene is so good. Like, I don't even remember why he, she, they are lying on the floor writhing around, but like they writhe one way and it's David, and then they writhe the other way and it's Catherine.
I know.
It keeps going back and forth.
All the while, Mike is standing over them going, David, fight back, David.
We can't do it justice. We can't. I'm sure it sounds really dumb, and it is really dumb, but it is so fun to watch. Like, I swear to God, I haven't laughed so hard in a long time.
Well, and half of what makes it fun is it's really well done, actually. Like, it's a good editing job. It's quite skillful. It's really nice. Like, it's goofy, but it actually looks convincing. Michael takes advantage of David's freak out, I guess, and runs out, smashes through the doors of the tanning parlor, unties Laura, and then immediately she's back there. And nobody else is in the room. And she says, "Now is your chance, Michael. Come with me into the inferno. Come with me, and let's live forever in hell."
Yeah, let's die together and live forever in hell. Yeah, it's great. I love before that, like when it was going back between her and David, and I don't remember. Michael said something to her like, I'll do whatever you say, just let Laura go first. And she says, don't give me ultimatums. Like, just the lines were so funny, and the delivery is so funny, and this ghost is just the lady who's playing this ghost is playing it so, all of them are playing it completely straight, and it's so silly.
That's Sherry Shattuck, yeah. Oh, man, it's so great.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's Catherine, right? Sherry Shattuck.
Uh-huh.
I read somewhere that the lady who played Laura claims that she doesn't remember making this movie. I don't know.
How convenient for you.
Yeah. I mean, she's not bad in it. Everybody's fine. Nobody's terrible. So after she says, let's die together and live forever in hell, Marvin bursts in and grabs her from behind, but she hurls him through a window. And then, like, she hurls him through a window into the party, and then it just switches to another shot, and the party is just going on. Like,
Yes.
nobody cares at all that people are dying everywhere.
I did begin to wonder when everyone was going to start to care, because I was waiting for my pandemonium moment, right? And that happens right away. Like, she says, fine, everyone in this place is going to die.
But not before, not before there are several good things that happen here. After the guy gets thrown through the window, then a blender eats a girl. This girl had
That's after all this.
Is it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this bartender girl, she's like making a smoothie or something, and her hand gets stuck in the blender, and the fat cop is trying to help her get it out, but it goes on for, it had to have been at least a minute and a half.
Yes.
And she just take your hand out.
Take your hand out of the blender. Like, no, it's
and there's
stuck,
so much blood. They're like wading in blood by the end.
Oh, it's great. And then the investigator.
Yeah, he gives up. And he gives up, and then and then the freezer door behind him shoots open, and all this cold air shoots at him, and he gets dragged into the freezer where he's
assaulted by fish.
And not only like this fish, like this. It's just a fish carcass, like, lunges at him and bites his throat, and he's holding it, and it's flopping, and the tail is like flopping in his crotch, and he dies, and it's just, and blood is squirting everywhere.
It's
and
fantastic.
It just looks, it's so great. And then Priscilla, Tom had knocked her out earlier for reasons unknown, but she comes to, and she goes in to look at herself in the mirror in the bathroom, and the mirror starts going all wonky and then explodes. And it had to have, I have no idea how they did this, but it had to have been some big explosion right in front of some sort of dummy, because it just blew that dummy to smithereens.
Yes. She is just like disintegrated by this mirror. And that's what everybody sees, this happening. And that's, I think, when the panic sets in. Finally, 3 people instead, witness this going on.
I almost texted this to you because my next notes are chaos, fire, boobs.
That's it.
And everybody's trying to get out, and they're like, and of course it's locked, and
nobody can break a window, apparently.
Glass front, and nobody can get out, and they're like piling up. They're trampling over one another, like bodies are just piling up. It's insane. The whole place is burning.
There are even just shots of the dead bodies here and there, up against the window, people smashed dead up there.
And I loved that shot. You get an exterior shot with all the pandemonium, because it's all glass front, so you can see all the pandemonium going on inside, and the sign, Death Spa. Like,
yes.
It's great. So great.
So glorious.
And then Catherine, no. Michael's like, I'll show her fried chicken. And he goes to like the electricity box.
I cannot figure this out. Takes off his shoe.
Takes off his shoes. Like, was he wearing tap shoes? Like, I don't understand. Takes off his shoes and like hooks them up to the wires, and then like it's almost like he's made his own defibrillator, but he puts the paddles, which are his shoes, together, and I guess somehow it electrocutes her. I think she's like in the computer now. I don't know what happened to David.
I think she is David, right? So she's the same. But I think it's like he short-circuited the electrical path that leads straight to the computer. So like sparks start flying in the computer room, and it's like she's almost struck by lightning or whatever. While he's standing there holding it together, like he's got to hold it together, and he himself seems to be getting electrocuted, right? It's like,
yeah. And then he and Laura and the female cop, for some reason, need to get into the control room, even though she's burning. They need to get in there for some reason. And Michael's like, he's like, the computer, lock the doors. And the detective stands back and pulls out her gun and says, fuck this computer shit. shoots the lock. And they go in there, and Michael says, it's Catherine. She took over David's body.
and her burned up, nasty looking corpse is motionless against the wall, and they walk up to it. And of course, he says, don't get too close. And of course, Catherine reaches up with her arm, like the killers usually do at the end. And David, like, almost casually pulls her arm off.
Right?
And then, meanwhile, the cop just says, wait a second, and shoots him in the head like 3 times.
Which is hilarious. And then they all leave. And then Catherine is like completely burned up. She's just like a skeleton in goo. But she just says, nice try, Michael. And then like her eyeballs fall out.
Goo squirts out of her eye. Yeah, freeze frame. And then the closing song, Killer Groove, kicks on.
That was seriously one of the wildest movies I've ever seen. And it took a little while to get into it. Honestly, I was kind of scratching my head for the first half, maybe.
Oh, man. 20 minutes in, and I was sold on it.
Well, yeah, because all the boobs.
Well, that's...
You texted me that. You texted me just as I was getting ready to start watching it. You texted me 20 minutes in, and I'm totally sold. And then in the first 5 minutes, there's a fully naked woman. I'm like, obviously, Todd. It doesn't take that much, really, to get you on board.
I'm a pretty simple man, really. But no, honestly, like, it just had everything. It had the 80s. It had great soundtrack. It had that great opening camera shot. Of course, it had the boobs. It had ridiculous special effects that worked, that were fine, that were great. Insane gore. No apologies. I mean, and it was campy.
Yeah.
But they weren't playing it campy.
No.
And somehow this whole combination just, it really worked. I've never seen it quite like this before.
It really did. I mean, it is. I would say that it's one of those movies that's so bad it's good, but also, and you mentioned this before, it feels like they get it. It feels like they're in on the joke, like they know what they're doing.
Yeah,
they're not trying to make a classic. They're trying to make something schlocky, and it is schlocky, and it's super, super fun. It's just really fun to watch. I read afterwards that they've done this on the How Did This Get Made podcast, and I was so tempted to listen to it because that's one of my favorite podcasts. Not that we really need to plug other pods on ours, but I'm happy to plug theirs. They don't need it. They're all famous. No. Yeah. But it is. It's one of my favorite podcasts, and I can't wait to hear their episode on it, see what they had to say about it. And then when I was just looking for stuff, and it came out on Blu-ray. It was only released in Japan initially, and then I think it went straight to video here like a couple years later. And then eventually, I think in like 2014 or something, they released it on either DVD or Blu-ray. I think Blu-ray. And there's a featurette. There's like a 50-minute long making of documentary. And so I was looking for that on YouTube, and I couldn't find it. But I did find it's not riff tracks, but it's a riff tracks type deal with guys just sitting and making fun of it. And it was just clips. I think you have to subscribe to their Patreon if you want their full episodes, but there were clips of them riffing on this movie, and it was hilarious, and I laughed again. You know, this was an hour after I had watched the movie. I laughed at all these same things again. If you want to have, I know, Todd, you with your friends when you were a teenager used to have these like stupid movie nights. This would be perfect for that type of thing. Get together with your friends, drink like 5 beers each, and then put this movie in and just have fun, like joke on it, because it's worthy of it, and I just think it's so funny and so much fun. I laughed so hard so many times, and that doesn't happen a lot.
No. I mean, I watched this completely sober, which that doesn't always happen. That doesn't happen a lot. But I was just over the moon happy with it. laughed so hard. Just could not believe it. Every subsequent scene just gives you another payoff. It just keeps moving. It's never boring. It's head scratching in a great way. It's my new favorite bad movie that we've. And it's not even a bad movie. That's the thing. It's not bad. It is well made. And I, like you said, I would put it in that category of like Fred Decker, where they made a campy movie, but they knew they were making it. That's why they made it this way.
Right.
And it's just fun from beginning to end, just absolute fun. And apparently it originally was going to get slapped with an X rating. I guess they probably had to cut a couple boobs, probably more so on the violence, I'd imagine, to get the R. I wonder if that Blu-ray has some of the uncut scenes.
I don't know. But again, listeners, it as of the time of this recording, it is streaming for free on Tubi and I think Vudu and a couple of other platforms. So even if you don't have a subscription, you can find this.
Check it out for free.
Yeah, check it out for free, and you should. It's fun. If you need a pick-me-up, watch this movie.
Well, it's going to be hard to top this, 2023.
Well, it's pretty early on. I mean, I hope we see at least a couple other good ones this year.
The bar is high. Thank you so much for listening to another episode. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with a friend. You can find us just by Googling Two Guys and a Chainsaw Podcast. You can subscribe to us on our YouTube channel as well as anywhere that you like to listen to your favorite podcasts. We're on all of those services. Find our Patreon at patreon.com/Chainsaw Podcast. Consider supporting our efforts here, and you'll get a bunch of extra goodies. We put out a couple minisodes every month. We have some behind-the-scenes stuff. We just generally chit-chat with our patrons in the background, and that's a lot of fun. Until next time, I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
With Two Guys and a Chainsaw.